Night, lows temperatures of 9 to 12 degrees. And now up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now then, welcome along to Tuesday's show. As I was saying before 7 o'clock, he didn't want to be the story, but Richie Hogan most certainly was the story of this year's All-Ireland final. He's on the show tonight, 7:30. The former hurler of the year, Kilkenny legend, is with us 7:30 to reflect on, I'm sure, pretty tricky few days. After 8 o'clock, we'll have Ciara McGeehan in studio as she builds up to the World Championships in Doha. And then Pat Nevin on the football show. Penalty confusion, ahoy, at Molyneux last night. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. We have Shane Hannon in this evening for Richie. Shane, how you doing?
Hi, Joe.
And Johnny Ward with us. Johnny, we'll also talk some League of Ireland later on this evening. But your thoughts on the final on Sunday?
Great coup to get Richie Hogan. Didn't think it'd be possible for anyone to get him this week in light of what happened. I had sympathy for Richie to an extent that he's an amateur hurler, an amateur sports person who was so much, of a spotlight is shone on him. He will be blamed for Kilkenny losing that game by a lot of people, rightly or wrongly.
Will he be blamed or will his sending off be blamed? And there is a subtle difference there.
He should have been sent off, and he, in my view, his tackle was utterly reckless. I think he might have just lost his kind of cool a bit because Richie Hogan had a serious, hit from Barrett earlier on in the game. He was. It did look like a tackle that, to me, had a little bit of needle in it. I think the fact that there's even a debate about the red card really shines a light on hurling people, because it's a great to have a physical game, but like if that's not a red card, we may as well give up. It's a blatant red card. There's a lot of debate about VAR at the moment, because VAR, when it's slowed down, you can see something different to what actually happened, and what happened slowed down is not actually necessarily a true representation of what happened. What happened did not happen in slow motion. Yeah. And VAR has kind of gone to the realms of, well, if it's slow motion, it's right. Whereas, well, what happened in actual motion is what happened. But for me, that's a red card all day long for Richie Hogan. It spoiled the game, obviously. But I do feel sorry for him because, this talk of he's not a dirty player and all that, from all my years watching Richie Hogan, I have massive sympathy for him for the injuries he's had. He's had really two pretty quiet years for Kilkenny. He was come back to a bit of form this year, and for the game he'd gotten a great point or two early on in the game. For it to happen the way it did, I had a lot of sympathy for him.
Yeah, it's rough. And I'm sure you might have seen it on Twitter today, but there's a shot of Bill Cooper hitting Hogan, of all people. I'd forgotten the incident. Head height and at serious speed. I'd say you'd sooner almost have been Barrett than Hogan of the two incidents if you had to be on the receiving end. And Hogan is straight back up. I mean, it's phenomenal. And even Brendan Cummins on commentary is saying, geez, he's done Bill Cooper a massive favour there. And that's how he plays the game. And so
that's on nearly all hurlers. You don't really see play acting in hurling. It's not part of the DNA of hurlers. And Richie Hogan, I remember meeting him at scoring races before, and I couldn't get over how small he was. Like he's probably an inch or two smaller than me, and at the time he was possibly the best hurler in Ireland. But he got up, and I know there was criticism of the Cooper incident that there's not consistency, but
one doesn't.
It doesn't, and it's also they weren't exactly the same tackle either, in the sense that and one day is different to the next. And I can't remember who said on the Sunday game, the body language of the referee, he really didn't want to send him off. It was just like he was doing everything not to send him off, but there was no. And I thought the Kilkenny lads who were saying that it was a wrong call, like they really have a lot to answer for. There was no debate about that. That's a red card every day of the week.
We spoke to Richie Hogan before coming on air, literally just before coming on air. So we're just getting our bits together here. So just to give you a sense, this is, I guess, a bit of a news line, but it'll give you a sense of the interview coming up at 7:30. He absolutely doesn't think it was a red card offence. Have a listen.
I was going in for a shoulder, obviously. I mean, I actually watched it back there this morning. Obviously I stayed away from it earlier on, but I mean I was going in for a shoulder on Cathal Barrett, and he sidestepped inside, and my momentum kind of took me through. In my opinion, there's absolutely no way it was a sending off. Somebody said to me, I think it was yesterday, that they were talking about an elbow. Any talk about an elbow there is absolutely crazy. My elbow does not connect with him at all. My shoulder absolutely does, or that
your arm between your shoulder and your elbow. But I mean, they spoke about your arm not being down beside your side. I mean, this is not Irish dancing.
So that's Hogan. That's his firm opinion on it. We'll play you the full interview around 7:30. Either way, it's a sickener for him. You know, I mean, he didn't convince me either, and I kind of said to him, look, we'll have to agree to disagree. But I absolutely take your point. What struck me as well was he said, you know, I put it to him that Shane Dowling reckoned that Carl Barrett's initial fell on you. Shane Dowling was on last night in the show, and he said that's a red for me.
Yeah, a lot of people would agree.
His head height catches Hogan, busts him open, has to go off as a blood substitute. That's a red card.
Yeah.
And I put it, you know, I said, like, there was a sense, well, you were peeved, you know, we saw you on the ground giving out, and you had the chance to get one back, and that's what happened. You must have been a bit, you know, frustrated, pent up. And he said, absolutely not. He said, Carl Barrett's tackling me, nothing wrong with it, no issue with it whatsoever. The reason you might have seen me kind of peeved on the ground or saying something to the referee is he wanted me to get off the pitch straight away with the blood, and I was trying to tie my lace, and I was almost saying, will you get off my case kind of thing. No issue with the Barrett tackle on me whatsoever. This was not me pent up red mist going at him. It's an interesting insight into his mind, because from afar that's how it all looked, how it played out. Barrett gets one in on him, and here comes retaliation. But
in fairness to Richie, some people will have exactly my opinion of what happened, and they listen to Richie and say, well, maybe he has a point in that it happened so fast. Richie Hogan may not actually know really what happened in that instant or what was going through his mind. It's an All-Ireland final. But I would reiterate this. He's an amateur sportsman, and it's very, very tough to be plastered all over the national papers playing a game you're not paid for in front of people who paid 90 quids to go in front of 80,000 people, and you will be vilified by people, rightly or wrongly, in all the pubs across Ireland. And it's not easy for Richie Hogan. He can't kind of go on holidays and say, well, it's grand, I'm on 50 grand a week, I'll get over it. He can't. And he's been a hurler who's been through an awful lot with injuries and been slightly out of favour in the Kilkenny setup as well. You know, and
fought his way back in brilliantly.
Yeah, and you know what his future is for Kilkenny now. A lot of people have been talking to me that are doubting his future, and I would sincerely hope. I would absolutely love if Richie Hogan had a renaissance. You know, we saw Noel McGrath, what he came back from to be man of the match, hurler of the year, for, you know, and all that potentially or whatever. But his performance on Sunday, for Richie Hogan to have a comeback would be absolutely great for the game.
Well, we get into that with him. So I'll say no more. We'll bring that interview straight after the news round, which will get underway now. So, Shane Hannon, where are we starting?
Yeah, we're going to start with widespread condemnation today of racial abuse online directed towards Manchester United star Paul Pogba. This came, of course, after he missed the penalty to make it 2-1 to Manchester United in last night's 1-1 draw with Wolves at Molineux. In a statement today, United said, we will work to identify the few involved in these incidents and take the strongest course of action available to us. Former Liverpool and England star John Barnes says today it's society's problem, not just football's.
What can football do about somebody on a Monday night or Tuesday afternoon on their phones with social media? This is a social problem. It is. So as much as, yes, they may be Man United fans, before they're Man United fans, they're members of society. And until we target society and put together an educational program to let people know why it's wrong to be racist, rather than blaming social media or blaming football, it'll continue.
England women's manager Phil Neville is also speaking about this incident today. He says he believes clubs and players should boycott social media in response to this recent abuse.
I've lost total faith in whoever runs these social media departments. So I just wonder whether now as a football community, in terms of really sending a powerful message, is come off social media. 6 months. Let's come off social media. Let's see the effect that it has.
It's not the worst suggestion I've ever heard. It would be very easy for each individual footballer to do it. So look, it's dreadful. It's really hard to know what else you can say about it. The penalty controversy rumbles on. It was a strange moment. Were you watching last night?
I was watching Shamrock Rovers and Watford, actually.
Oh, and, there you go.
Yeah, I to be honest, I didn't take an awful lot of notice of what happened. I was reading it today. Aidan O'Hara had a very good piece in The Independent about it. He's fairly nailed on as usual, and I find it bizarre. I think this should be fairly preordained before you go onto the pitch. I don't have any faith in that Man United dressing room in general, and this isn't a great incident of kind of, you know, the hierarchy system of, you know, who's taking the penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a piece in the Telegraph today vilifying Solskjaer for not having the right to say in the dressing room, well, you're the penalty taker. But I think it's quite unfair on him. I mean, he as a manager has a right to say, well, whoever wants to take the penalty can step up if they feel confident in the moment and take the penalty. But he's getting vilified for not having his designated penalty taker, which is a little bit unfair, I think.
Why is it unfair?
Well, he's made his decision in that his decision is that the players decide themselves in the moment. I mean, it's the same for penalty shootout. Sometimes you have players who feel like they can kick the penalty. Sometimes players feel nervous in the moment. Maybe Rashford was a little bit nervous. He threw the ball to Pogba last night. They had a little mini discussion, threw the ball over to him. Pogba won the penalty. Rashford won the penalty last week and took it. Pogba won it this week and missed.
And what happens if they both want to take the penalty? Like, if Rashford doesn't feel like taking a penalty straight after he whacked one in against Chelsea so brilliantly, a few days later, confidence high.
Yeah.
I don't know when he'll ever want to take one, so he clearly wanted to.
Yeah. The other argument is that Pogba has missed, I think they said last night he's missed
4 in 12 months,
since the start of last season, which is worrying as well.
Because he does have a seniority over Rashford, is the problem. And are you not just adding to the stress of each penalty when the two players, when it's awarded, suddenly have to look at each other? Well, so whoever's taking the penalty has the stress of having to take the penalty.
Yeah.
And now you layer onto that this like mini negotiation.
Yeah.
So what happens when they both want to take it? Someone's going to have to...
I don't think it's an ideal prep, where you might be thinking, oh, I've put a bit of pressure on myself here because
That's
I've actually...
the other thing.
Yeah.
The next penalty will be interesting that United are awarded. Solskjaer said that to the press last night, that it's up to them, but I think after that incident last night behind closed doors, he will have pointed to someone before the next game and said, you're kicking it.
I mean, I wouldn't even find it ludicrous to have two designated penalty takers, but I think going out onto the pitch each day, it just should be decided, and preferably the day before, so whoever's taking penalties can practice. Because there will be, periods in a season where somebody's not playing their best stuff, confidence is low, fair enough. And in that instance, you can kind of say, okay, well, look, when you're not going through your best spell, we'll have a penalty taker. But I don't think it should be this thing whereby the penalty is given and they both look at each other.
There was... I don't know if you remember when Shamrock Rovers won in Belgrade in 2011. It was the penalty that got them into the Europa League group stages, and I've spoken to Stephen O'Donnell about this, and Stephen O'Donnell took the famous penalty, but he was saying, like, I'm not going to name the player, but there was like the really regular Shamrock Rovers penalty taker who absolutely ran a mile. There was so much pressure on the penalty. He was just like, take the ball, I don't want to go near it. And Stephen O'Donnell was like, yes, and it was like one of the most historic penalties ever taken by an Irish club to get them through, and you could feel the pressure in Belgrade, and I don't know what the designated penalty taking situation was that night, but a lot of them just didn't want to go near it.
So we'll see what Pat Nevin makes of it. I mean, Solskjaer is getting absolutely pilloried for it. There is this almost sense of kind of wanting not to offend anyone or do anything wrong and keep Pogba on side. And
it's very difficult for Solskjaer. It's very, very difficult for him to manage that situation and the egos in that dressing room. And I wouldn't wish it on.
See, he's a striker himself who probably wasn't a penalty taker by any degree, so he probably sympathises with a striker who doesn't want to hit a penalty like maybe Rashford was last night. I don't know.
Are you telling me Rashford, between what happened at Old Trafford and last night, suddenly lost his mojo when it comes to penalties?
I don't know. There was something about Rashford in the second half last night. He was excellent in the first half and then just went completely lost in the second half. Took a free kick from about 40 yards and attempted a shot for some reason. Maybe he wasn't thinking straight in the second half, but he certainly was a lot poorer in that second half than the first.
Yeah. And there is an issue as well when one player is clearly more senior than the other.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, if you're Pogba, put yourself in his shoes. Rashford scored the last one. Surely you would say to him, go on, you go again.
Who's the leader in that team, though?
I don't know.
Do you know? If Harry Maguire is going to become this lion, and in fairness, he would be a good man for the job, but every team needs a proper leader, in my view, and I just don't know who their leader is.
It's hard to tell.
It's not Pogba anyway.
It's hard to tell from their on-pitch personalities, It's hard to tell. Anyway, we'll see what Pat Nevin makes of it after 9, see if he's ever heard of a situation like that. So the Alexis Sanchez thing could be coming to an end?
Yeah, so Solskjaer has admitted Alexis Sanchez could leave United before this European transfer window closes. The Chile international's agent has held talks with Inter Milan regarding a potential loan move to Serie A, so we could join Romelu Lukaku there. Solskjaer said after last night's game there might be a deal done before that deadline on September 2nd. Rugby as well. Johnny Sexton was one of 5 players who sat out Ireland training today in Quinta do Lago in the Algarve. It means Jack Carty could be in line to start that World Cup warm-up against England at Twickenham on Saturday. Robbie Henshaw, Keith Earls and James Ryan also sat out today's session. Soreness given as the reason for most of those absentees today. Ireland's skills and kicking coach Richie Murphy also gave this update today on the fitness of Joey Carbery.
Joey's doing really well. Obviously, the time frame around his injury has been well stated. He's recovering well. He's well into his recovery program. Talking to him, he feels good and confident. He's exactly where the medics would expect him to be at this stage.
So I tweeted Richie Hogan to be with us at 7:30. Adrian Cullen, can we not just move on?
That's not how...
he hasn't spoken yet.
It's only been 2 days. Fairness, Adrian, come on. It's not like this is a massive ongoing saga for years. It's been 2 days and he hasn't spoken.
We know Adrian wants to listen as well.
Okay, you can tune out. Come back for Kieran McGeehan after 8 o'clock, Adrian. No problem. Pat Nevin on the way at 9.
Big day for Irish dressage as well. That team, the Irish dressage team have qualified for an Olympic Games for the first ever time. The final Irish rider today, Judy Reynolds, she was on board Vancouver Quay, scored a new National Grand Prix record. That was at the European Championships in Rotterdam. That secures the Irish team's progress to the Tokyo Games next summer. Kildare native Reynolds says qualifying makes the next 12 months much easier on the team horses.
Well, for us personally, actually, this allows us to let our horses have a little bit of a break for the rest of the year. You know, my horse, for example, he's 17 years old. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't need to train every day to stay at this level. He can have a little bit of a break, stay in really top form. He doesn't have to be put under pressure to compete for too much for the rest of the year. And then next year we'll build up and aim to peak come Tokyo.
Dressage fan, Johnny?
No.
At all?
No, I haven't. I suppose I haven't. Don't knock it if you haven't tried it, but no, it wouldn't be for me. I've often said if gambling was taken out of horse racing, I'd have no interest in it.
We'll tune into the Olympics though. The Irish show jumping team as well begin their quest for the Olympic qualifying. They are hoping to qualify for the first time since 2004. They get underway in the European Championships on Friday, so hopefully they make it as well.
Yeah, it's a very talented sport. It's just, I suppose, you've only room for so much in your daily life.
This is it.
Yeah. How many sports would you say you're knowledgeable / interested in?
Gaelic football and snooker would be the top two. Randomly.
Much more rounded than that, though, aren't you? Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Joe, many sports would you
say I'm knowledgeable in?
Would you watch? Like, how many sports do you happily watch?
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Say
similar enough, yeah. 2 or 3, like soccer and racing all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And
not GAA, no.
In the summer, like, not so much in the league where I'd watch it, but it wouldn't be religious, like.
I thought you'd become a rugby man of late.
And a little bit of rugby then, so nothing too much. Yeah.
Where are we going next? And last
we've spoken about one of the controversies at that hurling final of the weekend, but the company that operates the Hawkeye score detection technology that is in use at Croke Park insists that it can tell when a ball has passed over the crossbar. There was some doubt over at Kilkenny Point in the first half, of course, of that All-Ireland final last Sunday. The ball was caught by Tipperary goalkeeper Brian Hogan, but eventually given as a point. The Hawkeye company says today the system only gives a point when the ball has crossed the plane of the goal and in between the goalposts. This point in the trajectory of the flight is signified by the trajectory changing from red to white. This therefore does not occur when the ball is wide of the post, so they're defending their technology.
Well, it's good to know because we were wondering.
But you've debated about VAR, like, and I mean, it's so, you could have a one way or the other, but that's an exceptional thing because there's no one in the world would have thought that was over the bar. Like, no way, and it was like, even when you're looking back and his hand is up, it's like, how is it so far over? And obviously it was. And it was a key moment in the game.
Oh yeah, crucial. The VAR thing is fascinating in that they're saying they actually can't tell when it's offside, and yet they're using the technology, is what I don't understand. So the margin for error is a certain number of frames per second, and the time it takes to kick a football is quicker than those frames per second. And so it's not actually accurate, given that they're measuring, Raheem Sterling's finger to the millimetre, and the margin for error is 2, 3, 4 centimetres, and they've cut it down to a few millimetres, and yet they're still using it.
Yeah.
And no one's explained to me why that's allowed.
Yeah, I've kind of gone off it the more I look at it. Like, I thought the Man City game on Saturday, nobody would have seen that. I mean, granted,
handball.
The idiotic handball rule, which is one of the most stupid things that has ever been introduced into football.
Yeah.
How that's a handball, like, is insane. But that ruined the, and it's like, what was it, like 70 seconds before the goal was disallowed?
Yeah.
And Ken Early had a very good piece where he wrote about the referee isn't really that important anymore. He's just there to say, I'm looking at it. The VAR said it, so what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, the referee does like the unimportant decisions.
Yeah.
The general flow of the game almost.
I would be kind of harping back to the old days when it's just like, Brand, he got, what do you think?
I think the right decision takes precedence, The handball rule is silly. Like, let's scrap that rule for a start. Because even, so another way it has to, either they gain possession or it contributes to a goal. There's some wording like that.
Yeah.
I heard somebody saying, so what happens if it hits a defender's hand, or not a defender's hand, what happens if it hits an attacker's hand and then leads to a goal at the other end?
How far back can you go and all
That's
that?
the question.
Yeah.
And increasingly with VAR, I mean, all the questions are going to be, well, how far back do you go? And also, where else do you apply it? Like, there was a player wrestled to the ground in the Spurs box, and it wasn't applied there, but it was applied to this very dubious accidental handball. I know there's no such rule as accidental handball, but it was. And you are entitled to think, well, why have you used VAR for that, but then not for this? And then if you start using it for this, then you have to use it for that.
Yeah.
Drawing the line, it was always going to be the tricky part. But I do think in 5 years they'll hone it and it'll be brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever be brilliant, but in that it's still, there is an element of, you go to the game, decisions can be wrong, we're human. If everything's going to be as...
You like that bit of jeopardy, do you?
Yeah, well, if everything's going to be as regimented, like I think Premier League referees are exceptionally good. It's just, they're becoming less relevant now because of technology.
Well, the one that got me the other night was the Liverpool-Chelsea game in the Super Cup, where there was like a ball over the top down the left-hand side, and it was offside. It led to the goal. And the lineswoman didn't put up her flag, even though I suspect she knew full well it was offside, because just in case there is the chance that you're wrong and the goal materialises, then you've stopped the play. But like, so it means 30, 40, 50, 60 seconds played out before they could go back and check it. That's a nuisance. And if you're a Liverpool defender playing the high line, there is a real element of, oh my God, I know this person's offside, but I have to turn now and sprint towards my own goal. And we have to wait until however long goes until we can actually pull back for offside.
It would be an interesting poll now if you were to put up there, are we in favour of VAR as it is, or would you prefer to just go back to as it was 5-10 years ago? I wouldn't be surprised if people were like, yeah, I'm actually just fed up with this.
Maybe. Our Roy Keane Gary Neville Premier League Roadshow is now completely sold out. It's happening at the Bord Gosh Energy Theatre September 4th in association with Carbery. The only way to enjoy it is to be there on the night, and we're giving away the last few tickets away as democratically as possible, so courtesy of a prize. For your chance to win a pair of tickets, identify our mystery voice here, who's heard a rumour that one of our Friday night racing regulars is making his much-awaited return this Friday after going missing last week.
Yeah, I think Johnny's on his way back.
They're saying it's a big boost for everyone.
Yeah, I think Johnny's on his way back.
If you know who that is, 53106 for 30 cents, and we'll announce the winner later on the show. It's our Roy Keane Gary Neville Premier League Roadshow with thanks to Cadbury, happening September 4th at the Bord Gosh Energy Theatre.
Some amount of interest in it. Some people who have never really texted me with Anthony are like, I really want to go to this.
Friends coming out of the woodwork, are they?
But yeah, I mean, it should be very, very entertaining, to be fair.
It should be. You can't go too far wrong.
We had
either of them.
Damien Delaney on
Saturday?
2 Saturdays ago, and he was writing off Roy Keane's managerial future. He'll never manage again, he reckons. I don't know if Damien's turning up on the night, but he can bring that up with Roy. It'd be interesting.
So that's our news round done for this evening. We have Kieran McGeehan in studio after 8 o'clock. We'll have the football show with Pat Nevin after 9. And up next, Richie Hogan with us.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Moncrief.
So this wine here, which is groin-strainingly heavy, the bottle trying to